The ship was quiet. It was always quiet during the rest cycle, but tonight felt different to Kel. He walked through the long metal hallway with soft steps. His forelegs made little sound on the floor. The lights above were dim, set to the low mode that helped the crew sleep. Kel was a Viren. His people were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They came from a cold planet where the sun was weak, and the nights were long. Virens did not need much sleep. A few hours every few days was enough. This made them good workers on spaceships. They could watch over things while others rested. Tonight, Kel was doing his normal walk through the ship. He checked the engines. He looked at the life support systems. He made sure the shields were working. Everything was fine. Everything was normal. But then he reached the crew quarters. The door to the human section was open just a little. Kel stopped walking. He knew he should not look inside. It was not polite to watch others sleep. But he was curious. He had only been on this ship for 3 weeks. He had never worked with humans before. Kel moved closer to the door. He put one of his large eyes near the gap and looked inside. There were 2 humans in the room. One was named Tejo. He was a big man with wide shoulders and thick arms. He worked in the cargo bay, moving heavy boxes and fixing broken machines. The other human was Hannah. She was smaller than Tejo, but still strong. She was a ship's pilot. Her hands could fly the ship through asteroid fields without hitting anything. Right now, both humans were asleep. Kel watched them with great interest. Tejo lay on his back on a small bed. His mouth was open and he made a soft sound with each breath. Hannah was on the other bed. She lay on her side with her knees pulled up toward her chest. Her hair covered part of her face. They looked so peaceful, so calm, so weak. Kel had heard many stories about humans. Other aliens said humans were dangerous. They said humans were strong and fast. They said humans could survive things that would kill other species. But looking at these 2 sleeping figures, Kel found it hard to believe. Tejo's arm hung off the side of his bed. It just dangled there, limp and useless. Hannah's breathing was so slow that sometimes Kel thought she had stopped breathing completely. These creatures did not look dangerous. They looked like babies. Helpless babies who could not protect themselves. Kel felt a warm feeling in his chest. It was something like affection. These poor creatures had to shut down completely for many hours every single day. Their bodies just stopped working. They could not see, could not hear, could not respond to danger. For almost 1/3 of their lives, humans were completely vulnerable. How did they survive as a species? Kel wondered about this. On his home planet, any animal that slept as deeply would be eaten by predators. But humans had somehow become one of the most successful species in the galaxy. It made no sense. Kel continued to watch. Tejo moved a little in his sleep. He turned his head to one side and mumbled something. The words were not clear. Then he was still again. Hannah did not move at all. She was like a statue made of soft flesh. After a few minutes, Kel stepped back from the door. He felt a little guilty for watching them, but he also felt something else. He felt protective. These humans were his crewmates now. While they slept, someone had to watch over them. Someone had to keep them safe. Kel decided he would check on them more often during rest cycles. He would make sure nothing bad happened to them while they were in this strange state of unconsciousness. It was the least he could do. He turned and continued his walk through the ship. His forelegs carried him down another long hallway. This one led to the engineering section. Kel liked the engineering section. It was full of machines and computers that he understood. Machines were simple. They followed rules. They did what they were supposed to do. Humans were not like machines. Humans were confusing. As Kel walked, he thought about what he had seen. The humans had looked so small in their beds, so fragile. Their skin was so soft. Their bones were so breakable. One good hit could damage them badly. One mistake could end their lives. And yet, humans had conquered so many worlds. They had built ships that crossed the galaxy. They had fought wars against species much bigger and stronger than them. and they had won. How? Kel reached the engineering section and began his checks. He looked at the power levels. He tested the cooling systems. He examined the fuel lines. Everything was working correctly, but his mind kept going back to the humans. There had to be something he was missing, some secret about humans that he did not understand. The stories could not all be wrong. Too many species told the same tales. Tales of human endurance, tales of human strength, tales of human violence. Maybe the stories were exaggerated. Maybe other aliens were simply scared of anything different. Kel had met aliens who were afraid of his species too. They thought Virans were creepy because of their many legs and large eyes. Fear often came from not understanding. Yes, that must be it. The humans were just another species. Different, but not special. Not dangerous. Just different. Kel finished his checks and left the engineering section. He walked back toward the main part of the ship. On the way, he passed the human quarters again. He did not stop this time. He did not look inside. But as he passed, he noticed something on the floor. It was a line of metal plates. They were thicker than the normal floor panels. They looked stronger, too. The plates extended from the human quarters down the hallway for about 10 meters. Kel stopped and looked at them. He bent down and touched one with his thin blue fingers. The metal was cold and heavy. It was the kind of metal used for heavy machinery, or for containing explosions. Why were these plates here? Kel looked up and down the hallway. He did not see plates like this anywhere else. Only here. Only near the human quarters. Strange. He made a mental note to ask someone about it later. Right now, he had more checks to do. The ship was large, and there were many systems to monitor. He could not waste time wondering about floor plates. Kel stood up and continued walking. But something in his mind had changed. A small seed of doubt had been planted. A tiny question that would not go away. Why did the floor near the humans need extra support? The answer would come soon. And when it did, Kel would never look at sleeping humans the same way again. 3 days passed on the ship. Kel did his work. He checked systems. He fixed small problems. He ate his meals in the crew kitchen. And every night, during the rest cycle, he walked through the ship and looked at the sleeping humans. They always looked the same. Peaceful, still, vulnerable. But Kel could not forget about the floor plates. Every time he passed them, he looked down. Every time, he wondered why they were there. The question sat in his mind like a stone in his stomach. It would not go away. On the 4th day, Kel decided to find answers. He waited until the morning cycle, when most of the crew was awake and working. The ship was busy with activity. Crew members walked to the hallways, talking and laughing. The engines hummed with power. The lights were bright. Kel went to the engineering office. This was where all the ship records were kept. Every repair, every modification, every change to the ship was written down in these records. If there was information about the floor plates, it would be here. He sat at a computer terminal and began searching. He typed in keywords. Floor, plates, human quarters, reinforcement. The computer searched through thousands of files. Nothing useful came up. Kel tried different words. Support structure, heavy-duty panels, crew section modification. Still nothing. The records showed normal maintenance, normal repairs, but nothing about special floor plates near the human quarters. This was very strange. If someone had installed those plates, there should be a record. Every change to a ship had to be documented. It was the law. Unless the plates had been installed before the ship was built. Unless they were part of the original design. Kel thought about this. The ship was called the Wandering Star. It was a medium-sized cargo vessel, about 15 years old. It had been built at the Kyoto Station shipyard in the Sol system. That was the human home system. Of course, the ship was built by humans, for humans. Maybe they always put those plates near human sleeping areas. Maybe it was some kind of human tradition or safety requirement. But that still did not explain why. What purpose did reinforced floor plates serve near beds? The humans were not that heavy. Tejo was big, but he probably weighed less than 200 kilograms. The floor could easily hold 10 times that weight without any extra support. Kel closed the computer terminal. He needed to ask someone who knew about ships, someone who had worked with humans before. He knew exactly who to ask. Captain Una was in her office when Kel arrived. She was a tall woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. She had been a captain for over 20 years. She had traveled to hundreds of planets and met thousands of different aliens. If anyone could answer his questions, it was her. Kel knocked on the doorframe. The door was open, but he wanted to be polite. Una looked up from her desk. She was reading something on a tablet. When she saw Kel, she smiled. It was a small smile, just a little movement of her lips. But it seemed genuine. "Kel," she said, "come in. What can I do for you?" Kel walked into the office. His 4 legs moved carefully on the smooth floor. He stopped in front of the captain's desk and stood straight. "Captain, I have a question," he said. "It is about the ship." Una put down her tablet. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. "Go ahead. Ask." Kel took a breath. Virans did not need to breathe very often, but he found that taking breaths helped him think. It was a habit he had picked up from working with other species. "I noticed something in the hallway near the human quarters," he said. "There are metal plates on the floor. They are thicker than the normal floor panels, much stronger. I looked in the ship records, but I could not find any information about them." Una's expression changed. It was a small change, hard to notice. Her eyes got a little wider. Her mouth got a little tighter. She uncrossed her arms and put her hands flat on the desk. "You notice the support plates," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," Kel said. "I want to know why they are there. The humans are not heavy enough to need extra floor support. What is the purpose?" Una did not answer right away. She looked at Kel for a long moment. Her eyes seemed to be measuring him, judging him, deciding something. Finally, she spoke. "How long have you worked with humans, Kel?" 3 weeks, he said. "This is my first assignment on a ship with human crew members." Una nodded slowly. "And what do you think of them? The humans on this ship?" Kel thought about the question. He thought about Tejo and Hannah. He thought about watching them sleep. He thought about how fragile they looked. "They seem pleasant," he said. "They work hard. They are friendly. But they also seem—" He paused, looking for the right word. "Delicate, especially when they sleep. They are completely unconscious, completely helpless." Something changed in Una's face. It might have been a smile, or it might have been something else, something darker. "Helpless," she repeated. "That is an interesting word." She stood up from her chair. She was tall for a human female, almost as tall as Kel. She walked around her desk and stood in front of him. "Let me ask you something, Kel. Have you ever seen a human wake up from a nightmare?" Kel did not understand the question. "A nightmare? You mean a bad dream?" "Yes, a bad dream. A very bad dream." Kel shook his head. "No, I have only seen humans sleeping peacefully." Una nodded. "Then you've been lucky, very lucky." She walked past him toward the door. She stopped at the entrance and looked back over her shoulder. "Come with me," she said. "I want to show you something." Kel followed her out of the office. They walked through the hallways of the ship. Crew members stepped aside to let the captain pass. Some of them looked at Kel with curious eyes. He was still new, still a stranger to most of them. Una led him to a small room near the bridge. It was a records room, full of computers and storage devices. She walked to one of the terminals and typed in a code. "Every ship keeps incident logs," she said. "Records of accidents, emergencies, unusual events. These logs are private. Only the captain and first officer can access them." She pressed a button. A list appeared on the screen. It was very long, hundreds of entries. Each one had a date and a short description. Una scrolled through the list. She stopped at one entry and pointed to it. "Entry 47, she said. "This happened 2 years ago, on this ship, before I was captain, before you joined the crew. Kel leaned closer to look at the screen. The entry said, Crew incident, Dongsu, sleep disturbance, structural damage to deck 7. Sleep disturbance? Structural damage? From sleeping? I do not understand, Kel said. How can someone cause structural damage while sleeping? Yuna tapped the screen. A video began to play. Watch, she said, and then you will understand why we have those floor plates. The video showed a small room. It looked like the crew quarters. A bed was in the center of the frame. On the bed was a human male. He was lying on his back, covered with a thin blanket. He was sleeping. At first, nothing happened. The man lay still. His chest rose and fell with each breath. It looked exactly like what Kel had seen with Teho and Hannah. Peaceful, calm, normal. Then the man started to move. It began with small twitches. His fingers curled into fists. His legs jerked. His head turned from side to side. His breathing got faster, louder, and then the screaming started. Kel watched in horror as the sleeping man exploded into violence. The video continued to play. Kel could not look away. His large dark eyes were fixed on the screen, watching something he had never imagined possible. The human on the bed was named Dongsu. According to the file, he had been a maintenance worker on the ship. He was young, only 28 years old. He had a wife and a daughter back on Earth. He had worked on the Wandering Star for 3 years without any problems. Until this night. In the video, Dongsu was still asleep. His eyes were closed. His mind was trapped in some terrible dream. But his body was moving like a wild animal. His right arm swung through the air. It hit the wall next to his bed with tremendous force. The wall panel cracked. Pieces of metal and plastic flew across the room. A normal person would have broken their hand from such a hit. But Dongsu did not wake up. He did not even slow down. His legs kicked out. One foot smashed into the floor grate at the bottom of his bed. The grate, made of solid aluminum, bent like it was made of paper. It tore free from its frame and flew across the room, hitting the opposite wall with a loud crash. Still, Dongsu did not wake. Kel felt his body trembling. Virans were not easily scared. His species had survived on a harsh, cold planet for millions of years. They had fought predators with teeth and claws. They had endured storms that could freeze the blood in their veins. But this was different. This was terrifying in a way Kel had never experienced. The video continued. Dongsu rolled off his bed and landed on the floor. He was on his hands and knees now, crawling rapidly across the room. His movements were strange, inhuman, like an animal, like a predator hunting prey. He reached the door. His hands grabbed the metal frame. And then, with a sound that made Kel's stomach turn, he began to pull. The door frame was made of reinforced steel. It was designed to survive explosive decompression. It was rated to withstand forces that would destroy most materials. Dongsu bent it with his bare hands. The metal groaned and screamed as it twisted. Dongsu pulled and pulled, his muscles bulging under his skin. His face was still relaxed, still sleeping. His eyes were still closed. But his body was producing power that should have been impossible. Stop the video, Kel said. His voice was shaking. Please, stop it. Yuna pressed a button. The screen went dark. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Kel tried to process what he had seen. He tried to make sense of it, but his mind kept rejecting the images. They were too strange, too impossible. How? He finally asked. How is this possible? Humans are not that strong. I have seen them. I have watched them struggle to lift heavy boxes. I have seen them get tired from simple tasks. They cannot. Cannot what? Yuna asked. Her voice was calm, patient, like a teacher talking to a confused student. They cannot do what I just saw, Kel said. It defies physics. It defies biology. No creature can produce that kind of force while unconscious. Yuna walked to a chair in the corner of the room. She sat down and looked at Kel with those sharp eyes. Let me tell you something about humans, she said. Something most aliens never learn. Something we do not talk about often. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Human bodies are limited by the human brain. Our muscles can produce enormous force, far more than we normally use. But our brain holds us back. It puts restrictions on our power. It prevents us from using our full strength. Kel listened carefully. This was new information. This was not in any of the files he had read about humans. Why, he asked. Why would the brain limit the body's strength? To protect us, Una said. Human muscles are so powerful that if we used all our strength all the time, we would destroy ourselves. We would tear our own tendons, break our own bones. Our bodies would fall apart. She leaned forward in her chair. So the brain acts like a governor on an engine. It limits how much power we can use. In normal situations, we only use about 30% of our total muscle capacity, sometimes less. Kel did the math in his head. If humans only use 30% of their strength normally, and Dong-Su had produced the kind of force shown in the video, when humans sleep, Una continued, the brain changes. It enters different states, different phases. During some of these phases, the restrictions become weaker. The governor turns off. And during nightmares, Kel asked, during nightmares, the brain thinks there is danger, real danger, life-threatening danger. So it releases more power. It lets the body do things it would never do while awake, things that seem impossible. Kel remembered the video, the broken wall, the bent door frame, the terrifying speed and violence. So when Dong-Su was having his nightmare, his brain thought he was fighting for his life. Una said, it removed all the limits. It let his body use everything it had. For those few minutes, Dong-Su was not a normal human. He was something else, something much more dangerous. She stood up and walked to a window. Outside, stars sparkled in the darkness of space. There's an old human phenomenon called hysterical strength, she said. You may have heard of it. Stories of mothers lifting cars to save their children. People performing impossible feats during emergencies. This is the same thing. The brain removes its restrictions because it believes survival depends on it. Kel nodded slowly. He had heard such stories. He had always thought they were exaggerated. Myths. Human propaganda. To make themselves seem more impressive. Now he was not so sure. But why does this happen during sleep? He asked. Sleep is not dangerous. There is no threat, no enemy to fight. The brain does not know that. Una said, when you are dreaming, your brain cannot tell the difference between the dream and reality. If you dream that you're being attacked, your body responds as if the attack is real. Your heart beats faster. Your breathing increases. And sometimes your muscles activate. She turned to face him. Most of the time, this is not a problem. The body has other safety systems. Chemicals that paralyze the muscles during sleep. But these systems are not perfect. Sometimes they fail. And when they fail during a nightmare, she did not need to finish the sentence. Dong-Su, Kel said. What happened to him? After the incident? Una's face became sad. It was the first real emotion Kel had seen from her. The first crack in her calm exterior. He was transferred to another ship, she said. A ship with better medical facilities. He needed help, treatment for his sleep problems. Last I heard, he was doing better. But he never returned to the Wandering Star. And the damage he caused? Repaired. Eventually. It took 2 weeks and a lot of credits. But we fixed everything. She walked back to the computer terminal. That is why we have the support plates, she said. That is why every human ship has reinforced floors near the crew quarters. Not because humans are heavy, but because sleeping humans are unpredictable. And when they have nightmares, they can become extremely dangerous. Kel thought about Teho and Hannah. He thought about watching them sleep peacefully. He thought about how helpless they had seemed. They had not been helpless at all. They had been loaded weapons, ready to fire at any moment. How often does this happen? He asked. The violent nightmares, Not often, Yuna said. Most humans sleep normally most of the time. The safety systems work. The muscles stay relaxed. But it can happen to anyone. Any human on any night can have an episode like Dong-Su's. She looked at him with serious eyes. That is why I wanted you to see this video, Kel. You are part of this crew now. You need to understand what humans really are, not the peaceful creatures you see during the day, but the weapons we become when our minds go to dark places. Kel needed. He understood now. He finally understood. Thank you, Captain, he said, for showing me the truth. Yuna smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The truth is just a beginning, she said. Now you need to learn how to survive it. The next few days were different for Kel. He still did his work. He still checked the systems. He still walked through the ship during the rest cycles. But everything felt changed. When he looked at the humans now, he did not see fragile creatures. He saw hidden danger. He saw power waiting to explode. Yuna had given him access to more files, more videos, more incident reports. She said it was important for him to understand. To really understand what humans were capable of, Kel had read everything. There were hundreds of recorded incidents across the fleet. Humans waking from nightmares and destroying equipment. Humans sleepwalking through corridors, tearing through locked doors like they were made of cardboard. Humans fighting invisible enemies, their bodies moving with speed and strength that defied all logic. One report described a human female who would put her fist through a reinforced window during a nightmare. The window was designed to withstand micrometeorite impacts. It was nearly a centimeter thick. She had shattered it with a single punch. Another report told of a human male who had lifted a 500-kilogram storage container while sleepwalking. He had carried it across the cargo bay and set it down gently, like it weighed nothing. When he woke up the next morning, he could barely lift it off the ground. The most disturbing report came from a military vessel. A soldier had experienced combat nightmares after returning from a war zone. In his sleep, he had attacked 3 of his crewmates. He broke one alien's arm with a single grab. He threw another across the room with enough force to crack the wall. The 3rd crewmate, another human, managed to wake him up before more damage was done. The soldier had no memory of any of it. Kel read these reports over and over. He watched the videos again and again. He tried to understand. He tried to find patterns. He tried to make sense of what seemed impossible. The science was clear. Human muscles were built differently than other species. They had a higher percentage of fast twitch fibers. They could generate explosive force very quickly. And their tendon attachments were positioned to maximize mechanical advantage. But the brain limited everything. The brain kept humans weak during normal activities. It only released a full power during extreme situations, life or death moments, or nightmares that felt like life or death. There was also the hormone response. When humans felt threatened, their bodies released chemicals called adrenaline and cortisol. These chemicals increased strength, speed, and endurance. They reduced pain sensitivity. They made humans temporarily superhuman. During nightmares, the body could release these chemicals even though there was no real threat. The brain could not tell the difference. It responded to the dream danger as if it was real danger. The result was a creature that could tear through walls while completely unconscious. Kel found this deeply unsettling. On his home world, the most dangerous predators were the ones that could attack without warning, the ones that seemed harmless until the moment they struck. Humans were exactly like that. They could go from peaceful sleepers to destructive forces in the span of a heartbeat. But there was something else, something the reports and videos could not capture, something Kel only understood after watching more footage of Dong-Su. He went back to the original video. Entry 47. He watched it from the beginning this time. He paid attention to the details he had missed before. The video had a data overlay. It showed Dong-Su's vital signs. Heart rate, blood pressure, brain activity. These numbers appeared in the corner of the screen, updating in real time. Before the nightmare began, Dong-Su's heart rate was 52 beats per minute, normal for a sleeping human. His blood pressure was low. His brain showed the slow, rolling waves of deep sleep. Then the nightmare started. The numbers changed instantly. Heart rate jumped to 120 beats per minute, then 150, then 180. His blood pressure doubled. His brain activity exploded into chaotic patterns. But what shocked Kel the most was the sustain level. The violin episode lasted for almost 4 minutes. During all 4 minutes, Dong-Su's heart rate stayed above 170 beats per minute. His body was producing maximum effort, maximum power, maximum output for 4 continuous minutes. Kel knew what this meant. He had studied alien physiology. He knew the limits of different species. Most aliens could not sustain such effort for more than a few seconds. Their bodies would shut down. Their hearts would fail. Their muscles would tear apart from the strain. But Dong-Su's body held together. His heart kept pumping. His muscles kept firing. For 4 minutes. He performed at a level that would kill most other creatures. And he never woke up. When the nightmare finally ended, Dong-Su simply stopped moving. He lay on the floor of his destroyed room, breathing heavily. His heart rate slowly decreased. His blood pressure dropped back toward normal. Within 10 minutes, he was sleeping peacefully again, as if nothing had happened. He did not remember any of it when he woke up the next morning. He thought someone had broken into his room. He could not believe he had caused all the damage himself. This was the true revelation. This was what Kel finally understood. Human bodies were designed for extreme situations. They could produce incredible power, incredible endurance, incredible violence, and they could recover from it. They could push themselves to the absolute limit and then just go back to sleep. No other species in the galaxy could do this. No other species had bodies that were both so limited and so unlimited at the same time. The humans were walking contradictions. Soft and hard, weak and strong, peaceful and violent. And the scariest part was that they could not control it. The violent episodes during nightmares were not choices. They were automatic responses, reflexes, the human body defending itself against threats that did not exist. Kel thought about the implications. What would happen if a human had a nightmare during a spacewalk? What would happen if they were sleeping near sensitive equipment, near other crew members? The support plates in the floor were just the beginning. The whole ship was designed to survive human sleep episodes. The beds were bolted to the floor. The walls were reinforced. The doors had special locks that could withstand thousands of kilograms of force. Humans were dangerous even when they were trying to rest, even when their minds were somewhere else entirely. Kel closed the files and sat in silence. He thought about everything he had learned. He thought about Tejo and Hannah. He thought about Captain Yuna. These creatures had conquered the galaxy not because they were smart, not because they were wise, not because they had better technology. They had conquered the galaxy because their bodies were weapons, because they could unleash destruction without even meaning to, because even their dreams could kill, and they had no idea. Most humans went through their entire lives never experiencing a violent sleep episode. They thought they were normal. They thought they were weak. They had no concept of the power sleeping inside them. Kel stood up and walked to a window. He looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, on thousands of ships, millions of humans were sleeping right now. Peaceful, calm, dreaming their dreams. And any one of them could wake up tomorrow to find they had torn apart their room in the night. The universe was a strange place. But nothing was stranger than humans. Nothing was more terrifying. Nothing was more fascinating. Kel understood now. He finally, truly understood, and he knew he would never see humans the same way again. 2 weeks after Kel learned the truth about human sleep, the alarms went off. It was the middle of the rest cycle. Most of the crew was asleep. Kel was doing his usual walk through the ship when the red lights started flashing and the sirens began to scream. He ran to the nearest terminal and checked the alerts. His heart sank when he saw the message. Collision warning. Asteroid field ahead. Estimated time to impact, 7 minutes. The ship had drifted off course while the pilot was sleeping. The navigation computer had failed to detect the asteroid field until it was almost too late. Now, they were heading straight into a cluster of rocks that could tear the ship apart. Kel sprinted toward the bridge. His 4 legs carried him faster than any human could run. He burst through the door and found chaos. The night crew was panicking. They were junior officers, inexperienced. They had never faced a real emergency before. They were frozen at their stations, staring at the screens with wide, terrified eyes. "We need a pilot," Kel shouted. "Someone wake Hannah. Now." One of the officers ran to the intercom and sent an emergency message to the crew quarters. The rest tried to slow the ship down, but it was not enough. The asteroids were too close, moving too fast. They needed Hannah. Kel watched the main screen. The asteroids looked like a wall of stone and iron. Some were small, the size of a person. Others were massive, bigger than the ship itself. They tumbled through space in random patterns, crashing into each other, breaking apart, reforming. Navigating through that field would be almost impossible, even for an experienced pilot, even with time to prepare. They had neither. The door to the bridge slid open. Hannah walked in. She was wearing her sleep clothes, a simple shirt and loose pants. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were half closed. She looked like she had been sleeping 5 seconds ago, because she had. "What is happening?" she asked. Her voice was slow, thick with sleep. "Asteroid field," Kel said. 7 minutes. "We need you to fly." Hannah blinked. She looked at the main screen. She saw the wall of death approaching. And then something changed. Kel watched it happen. He saw the exact moment when Hannah's brain switched from sleeping mode to survival mode. Her eyes snapped open. Her posture straightened. Her muscles tensed. The sleepy woman disappeared. In her place stood something else. Something focused. Something powerful. "Everyone out my way," Hannah said. Her voice was sharp now. Clear. Strong. She walked to the pilot's chair and sat down. Her hands moved across the controls with perfect precision. She activated systems, adjusted settings, prepared the ship for what was coming. 6 minutes to impact. "Kel," she said without looking at him, "strap in. This is going to be rough." Kel found a seat and buckled the harness around his thin body. The other crew members did the same. Everyone watched Hannah with a mixture of fear and hope. 5 minutes. The asteroids filled the screen now. They were everywhere. There seemed to be no path through them, no way to survive. But Hannah was not looking at the obstacles. She was looking at the gaps, the spaces between the rocks, the paths that no computer could calculate, the routes that only existed for fractions of a second before closing again. For minutes, Hannah pushed the engines to full power. The ship lurched forward, accelerating into the asteroid field instead of trying to avoid it. Kel wanted to scream. This was suicide. They were going to die. But then Hannah started flying. She moved the ship like it was an extension of her body. Left, right, up, down, rolling, spinning, diving. The asteroids rushed past the windows, so close that Kel could see the individual cracks in their surfaces. Hannah missed every single one. 3 minutes. The ship twisted through impossible gaps. It slipped between rocks that were only meters apart. It rolled sideways to avoid a collision, then immediately flipped upright again. Kel had never seen anything like it. The movements were too fast, too precise. No computer could make these decisions. No algorithm could process the variables quickly enough. Only a human brain could do this. Only a human body could respond fast enough. 2 minutes. A massive asteroid appeared directly ahead. It was too big to go around, too close to avoid. Hannah did not slow down. She aimed the ship at a tiny gap between the asteroid and a smaller rock next to it. The gap was barely wider than the ship itself. One wrong move would mean death. They shot through. The hull scraped against stone. Sparks flew across the windows. The ship shuddered and groaned. But they made it through. 1 minute. The asteroids were thinner now. The field was ending. Kel could see open space ahead. Hannah did not relax. She kept flying at full speed, dodging the remaining rocks with the same incredible precision. Her hands never stopped moving. Her eyes never blinked. 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds. And then they were out. The ship burst free from the asteroid field and sailed into clear space. Behind them, the rocks continued their endless tumbling. But the wandering star was safe. Hannah slowly reduced the engine power. She guided the ship back onto its original course. She activated the autopilot. Then she slumped back in her chair. Kel unstrapped himself and walked over to her. Up close, he could see the sweat on her forehead. He could see her hands trembling. He could see the exhaustion in her eyes. "How?" he asked. "How did you do that?" Hannah looked up at him. She smiled weakly. "I do not know," she said. "I just did it. My body knew what to do. I did not think. I just acted." Kel understood. He finally, completely understood. Humans were not conscious of their own abilities. They did not know what they were capable of. Their power was locked away, hidden behind mental barriers, waiting for moments like this. When danger came, those barriers disappeared. The limitations vanished, and humans became something more than human. It happened during nightmares. It happened during emergencies. It happened whenever the brain believed survival was at stake. Hannah had just flown through an impossible asteroid field while still half asleep. Her body had responded to the threat before her conscious mind even understood what was happening. She had saved everyone on the ship. And tomorrow, she would probably struggle to parallel park a shuttle. "Thank you," Kel said. "You saved us." Hannah nodded. She was already falling asleep again. Her eyes were closing. Her breathing was slowing. The emergency was over, and her body was shutting down to recover. Within seconds, she was unconscious in the pilot's chair. Kel looked at her sleeping form. He thought about Dongsu destroying his room during a nightmare. He thought about Taeho and Hannah sleeping peacefully in their quarters. He thought about the support plates in the floor. Humans were weapons, but they were not just weapons of destruction. They were also weapons of survival, weapons of protection, weapons that could activate without warning to save lives as easily as they could take them. The floor plates were not just there to contain the violence. They were there to let humans do what humans did best: fight. Whether the enemy was a nightmare monster or an asteroid field, humans would fight. They would push their bodies beyond all limits. They would do impossible things. And then they would go back to sleep like nothing had happened. Kel walked to the window and looked out at the stars. He thought about his home world. He thought about the predators that had terrified his ancestors. They had teeth and claws and speed. Humans did not have any of those things. But they had something better. They had unlimited potential, locked behind a wall that crumbled whenever they needed it. Other species evolved to be dangerous all the time. Humans evolved to be dangerous only when it mattered. And that, Kel realized, was why they had conquered the galaxy. That was why every other species either feared them or followed them. That was why the universe would never be the same after humans entered it. They were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest species. They were not the smartest species. But they were the most adaptable, the most unpredictable, the most explosive, and they could do it all while taking a nap. Kel smiled. For the first time since he had joined the ship, he felt truly safe. He was surrounded by sleeping humans, and that meant nothing in the universe could hurt him. The support plates would hold. They always did. And if something ever threatened the ship again, Kel knew exactly what would happen. The humans would wake up, and the universe would remember why it feared them.